There's no such thing as a pet squirrel. Best way to bet the NFL is win totals. In this win projection series, you will get to see the logic behind Big Ryan the Fat Guy's win total projections and how you can win whatever contest you decide to enter for the 2018 NFL season. Fat Guy, talk about the Bengals' 7-9 season last year.
Well, you said 7-9, and under Marvin Mediocrity Lewis, that's exactly what they were. There's something to be desired, but there were some exciting games. Like when they had that Hail Mary against Baltimore that put the Bills in the playoffs. Loved it. And when they blew the lead, as usual, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I also loved it.
So the man that wears the pants, you've already mentioned him once. Marvin Lewis is back again. The guy's coached, 85 years there?
Yeah, it feels like it. Or it sure looks like it. It's weathered that gentleman, that's for sure. Hasn't won a playoff game ever. And that's another active streak that is, I'm hoping gets broken maybe this year for these guys. The longest playoff win drought, I believe, since 1990. But the Browns have won in 94, so they are exempt from that record list. Also, the Browns have never made a Super Bowl. I don't know why I can stand liking this team, but somehow I do.
At offensive coordinator, they have Bill Lazor.
I like just saying Laser. It sounds way cooler. Bill Laser.
Don't call me Major Laser.
Major Laser. Oh, gross. Bill Laser took over for the failed Ken Zampese, who had trouble putting points on the board, especially touchdowns, and he had trouble incorporating A.J. Green into his offense. If you can't incorporate A.J. Green in your offense, you're not very good, and that's why Ken Zampese went over to work for the Cleveland Browns, where he won't be very good. Bill Lazor, he changed it totally around, and A.J. Green had a really, really good season under him. Andy Dalton looked all right. I mean, let's give him a full year under his belt, and maybe they can be a little bit better. I would have liked to have seen the running game be better. It was pretty underwhelming. Joe Mixon didn't look as good as many of us thought. I mean, you can't really punch players in the other team, can you?
On the defensive side of the ball, it's going to be Terrell Austin that has the reins of that defense.
Now, Terrell Austin's a defensive coordinator who always seems to get mentioned when there's a head coaching opportunity. Detroit Lions always seem to have decent defenses. Not great, but decent. He brought along Ziggy Ansah, and that was a 3-year stint in Detroit. Of course, when you bring in Matt Patricia, they have different systems, and Patricia is his own boss on defense, so there really was no need to keep him. So this is a good opportunity for the Bengals to really get after it with their defense, and it looks like it's going to be a successful season on that side of the ball.
So for notable player additions at backup quarterback, they brought in Matt Barkley.
Matt Barkley, he's a guy, whatever.
At left tackle, here's a big addition, Cordy Glenn.
Yes, now this is where we're going to get into it on why we seem to like the Bengals this year. They've had trouble at tackle. They drafted Jake Fisher and Cedric Ogbaye in the first and second rounds a few years ago, kind of to take over for Andrew Whitworth and Andre Smith, and it hasn't really worked out. So they found a clever way in getting Cordy Glenn from the Bills. So they traded up in the draft, they swapped first-round picks, and they moved back, and they got Cordy Glenn. And Cordy Glenn was a good player for the Bills. So I'm kind of expecting that same type of level of play for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Even with switching that first-round pick, they were able to bolster their O-line a little bit more by adding Billy Price.
Billy Price, Ohio State center. I mean, I always get weary when there's offensive linemen with big-ass knee braces in college. But again, I'm not going to criticize any of the picks from the draft because they should know more than us. Not Marvin Lewis, maybe not so much, but we're going to see. Billy Price should slot in right at center where he replaces Russell Bodine. I hope he does well.
At defensive tackle, they added Chris Baker, and at linebacker, they've also added Preston Brown.
Yes, they did. Chris Baker's had a decent career. Preston Brown is a good player. I'm excited for him on the Bengals. Oh, not to mention Bobby Hart, who was a shitty guard more or less for the Giants. He's going to get another shot on the Bengals, so maybe this change of scenery will help.
For notable subtractions, we have A.J. McCarron at quarterback.
No big deal. He wasn't going to start anyways.
At running back, Jeremy Hill.
No big deal. He wasn't going to start anyways.
At right tackle, Andre Smith.
He's a veteran, but they kind of upgraded. They added Cordy Glenn, and maybe Fisher can play right tackle. I'm not really sure. This is so-so.
On the defensive line, they lost Chris Smith.
Chris Smith's a good athlete that's supposed to have a coming out party every year, so we're going to have to see how he does on the Browns. They've moved on from him.
Now let's run through the roster. At quarterback, obviously, it's Andy Dalton.
At the Red Rocket. You kind of know what you get with the Red Rocket. Nothing spectacular, but he does have the ability to win games. They made the playoffs with him multiple times, but they've never managed to win a game. So I'm not sure how I feel about the Red Rocket, but really, how can you replace him? Are there better options? No, there isn't. You got to stick to your guns, and your gun is the Red Rocket.
At running back, they've got the 1-2 punch of Giovanni Bernard and Joe Mixon, as well as a new rookie in Mark Walton, a 4th-round pick.
Mark Walton's a little bit small, but I did kind of like him in Miami. Joe Mixon, I expect to pick up the load. It was just a bad rookie season. He looked way too talented to be that bad on this rookie season. And Gio Bernard can play. So this group has potential. I don't mind it. So I think it'll be okay. It won't be a strength necessarily of this team, but it should be all right.
When you're looking at strengths, it's hard to ignore the wide receiver group with AJ Green, Brandon LaFell, and Tyler Boyd.
That's
well as John Ross.
As well as John Ross. The guy didn't play last year. Now, this is one of those tales where you shouldn't just draft the guy who's the fastest on the board. Hopefully he figures it out. I watched a thing with him and Deshaun Jackson. They're talking about how he's already pro-ready, and that was before the draft last year. And frankly, we didn't see it this year. So maybe he does finally figure out how to use that speed. Maybe he has to be more mature in practice because he was a healthy scratch a bunch last year. But could that guy take off the top, essentially? I mean, yeah. If you're the fastest man in America, you could probably take the top off a defense.
That's the most I've heard you talk about a 4th receiver. How about AJ Green?
Good point. There's more to talk about a 4th receiver that hasn't played than AJ Green, because anyone who's ever been in a fantasy league knows that this guy is a star at the wide receiver position. He's absolutely fantastic. He finds ways to get touchdowns at any moment. He's great on short, he's great on intermediate, and he's great on deep balls, and he can catch. I mean, he credits himself being a juggler when he was a kid. I mean, I guess that's something, but AJ Green is a star receiver in the NFL.
I'm going to say the biggest X factor on this roster to me is tight end Tyler Eifert, and they also have flexibility there with Ryan Hewitt, Tyler Kroft, CJ Uzoma.
The last 3 guys, oddly enough, if anyone's been in a tight end pinch when Tyler Eifert was hurt, they've probably picked up CJ Uzoma or Tyler Kroft or something like that. And those guys know they even put up points. So this system kind of favors the tight end position. So Tyler Eifert, if he could be hurt, he could be kind of like a Zach Ertz perhaps. He's a really decent player at the tight end position.
Now moving on to the more exciting side of the ball for the Bengals, and that's on defense. On that D-line, they've got Carlos Dunlap, Michael Johnson, most importantly Geno Atkins, as well as Andrew Billings, a couple of a 3rd and a 5th round pick, and Sam Hubbard, Andrew Brown, as well as Chris Baker.
This is the strength of the defense. Now, you've heard me harp on old veterans. This D-line is all old veterans. But like you said, they drafted 2 guys. They brought another veteran in Chris Baker, admittedly. But Geno Atkins is a game wrecker. Andrew Billings takes up a lot of space. I've always liked Michael Johnson for whatever reason. I don't mind Carlos Dunlap. I think this is a above average to good unit. I'm going to say good unit, so I'm kind of excited. Plus, they have these rookies that we haven't seen yet. So this should definitely be a strength of the Bengals team, one of their strengths.
Linebackers pretty good too, highlighted by Vontaze Burfict and Preston Brown, as well as other guys like Nick Vigil, Vincent Ray, Carl Lawson, guys that have played before.
Well, you talked about a bunch of veterans, but no one can overlook the Ric Flair of the linebackers, the dirtiest player in the game, Vontaze Burfict. Now, he's serving a suspension, so that kind of hurts him a little bit, but I do like this grouping, especially with Preston Brown. I'm excited for this linebacking group. Getting Brown and Burfict on the field at the same time is going to be difficult with Burfict's suspension history, but I'm kind of excited for this group.
And at corner, they got Drake Kirkpatrick, William Jackson III, Darqueze Dennard. 3 highlight guys that have played the last few years.
Well, they're all first-round picks. That's one thing to notice. I feel like every year the Cincinnati Bengals just draft a cornerback in the first round. A lot of these guys have underwhelmed in their short careers. I feel like some of them are turning the corner. I watched a lot of tape on the Bengals corners last year, and there were some strong performances. I hope they can build on that pedigree, and they can play just as well, hopefully better this year. Not to mention, they have 3 draft picks in the secondary. 6 on defense in whole. They threw the whole draft at the defense. I'm excited to see how this defense performs as a whole.
And let's not forget the safeties in Sean Williams and George Iocca.
Yeah, decent at safety too. George Iocca is a little long in the tooth, but again, that shouldn't hurt them. This defense is experienced, but there are young pieces. It should be one of the better units. Of course, this is a new defensive coordinator, a new system. As Paul Gunther, I left for Believe the Raiders. But I'm excited with this group. If I were a defensive coordinator, this would be a job that you definitely want to step into.
What is the roster strength of the Bengals?
Defense as a whole for sure. But the offensive line kind of just got rebuilt overnight. Wide receivers decent. There aren't that many holes. Obviously the weakest thing is quarterback. I know you're going to jump in on me about weaknesses, but I kind of think this is a cohesive unit across the board. There doesn't seem to be too many holes on this roster. Every position is average to good, and that's good enough for me to have a complete team. It's tough to pick them apart.
So for a team grade, this is one of the higher ones so far. We have a C+ for the Bengals.
The same type of affliction Pamela Anderson and I suffer from.
Will Big Ryan the Fat Guy take the over, under, or is this a no bet? Currently, we have the Bengals winning 8.9 games with their schedule. That's right, 8.9 games. The over-under has been set at a measly 6.5 wins. That's 2.4 wins better than what we think the casino thinks. It's a great opportunity to take the Bengals over 6.5 wins. Take it one step further. We have the Bengals actually winning the AFC North, and right now they're listed at 10-1. That's something you got to get on fast.
10-1 is an excellent odd set because realistically, their chances of winning a division are, let's say, 40%. I mean, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but at 40%, you're getting 10-1. You bet $10, you profit 100. You bet 1,000, you profit 10,000. So I would jump on this Bengals bet. I mean, of course, we've done it first, so maybe the line's gone down a little bit. But you should bet on the Bengals to win this division and definitely go over that total.
Hit the like button if you agree with Big Ryan the Fat Guy. Give us a comment below letting us know how much money we're going to lose betting the Bengals at 10-1 to win the AFC North. Come on. Subscribe for more non sequiturs and NFL projections. I didn't even breathe the entire time.